Hollywood! From New Jersey, Bruce Weston's fantastic USA 1.
That is the absolute greatest intro, bar none. It just every time I get goosebumps from it. You just can't go wrong with that.
That's one of those things that, like, literally, it's like the kickoff to the Wednesday night Tech Talk Live. I actually look really forward to just hitting play on that sucker, to be honest with you.
I look forward to just hearing it, you know?
Yeah, but well, here we are on another Wednesday night. I know we got Zorak is he's supposed to be here as our special guest. I haven't actually seen him check in yet. He hasn't done anything to let me know that he's here, so he's going to probably just pop in whenever. And I know that it's going to be surprising. I'm sure of it. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Oh, there he is.
Zorak.
Yeah, he sees us. He's letting us know that he's here, and unfortunately, he just doesn't stick around. Apparently, but all right.
Awesome.
So
that's my childhood right there. You know.
Yeah, well, I think that's everybody in here is about our childhood, right?
Yeah.
Space Ghost, Coast to Coast, or even if you go back further, it's Space Ghost all the way back in the rerun days of Hanna-Barbera all over TV. So. No, his name is not Zoltar. It's Zorak.
Yeah, Zoltan. That's from Big, wasn't it? Zoltan, the guy who did the. Oh no, that was Zoltar. No, never mind.
No, you're right. No, it's a Zoltar machine. That's
Oh,
what
okay.
it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not Zoltan. It was. I think you're right. I think it's Zoltar.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, but yeah. Well, so Zorak himself is he is an undisputed car guy of I don't know, the 22nd century, I guess, apparently. So oh, all right. So he's digging what we're doing, right?
So awesome.
Well, all right. So we'll see what's going on tonight. So, do we have any Tech Talk questions? That's the big one. Well, I guess we'll greet everybody before we get too far behind. Slant Daily Garage was first in. Yeah, that's not fair, Shane.
That's why I said nope.
Yeah, 38 POS Racing, Scarlet Four-Eyed Cuda, Mopar Man 1978 is here. Fab Race Mod Repeat from Northeast Dragway. Steve K. Looks like Red Light's here. Oh, wonder what that's all about. A Cove, greetings and salutations. David James, what's up, G? Mostly old parts and Russ Patrick. Danny Boyd's here. Dr. Art is here. I'm sorry I've been missing your lives on Monday, Dr. Art. I actually have every intention to be in there. I'm buried. But Scarlet the Four-Eyed Coot is saying, just got my AHRA Racers Rep Program email. Time to build a list. So I don't know how much cash it's going to save you, depending on what you're building, and then pretty much whatever they can save you on overhead, right? So whatever their discount is.
Yeah. You know what I've been doing too lately is the people who come onto our lives, I've actually been going onto their lives like on Friday night and Saturday night and just checking in with them. So yeah, it's actually been kind of cool to go and see other people's lives. You know?
Yeah. Well, I used to run around on a lot of the lives. Right now is the worst part of the year for me. I'll let everybody know. I mean, usually I'm kind of a recluse anyway. I won't do anything until I have something to do. But it's like it's even worse from January till like April, because I'm getting everything ready to go for the race season, right? So I'm really just every day packing stuff, making stuff, turning stuff into the print shop, getting things made, preparing for the next thing, working schedules, the whole 9 yards. And the working schedules is not all that easy, right? Like just because I do everything different, right? I can't afford to have a rain out. The AHRA can't afford to have a rain out. We work everything. We're so shoestring budget. It's actually just a baby shoe, and it's a Chinese baby shoe. Okay, and
it's the one with the shoes like molded into the strings molded in
one giant piece of molded plastic all at once, right?
That's funny.
And so I can't afford to have a big rain out, because then you get $200-300 in overhead just in fuel, and then you don't have anything. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have an event or nothing. So,
we got our first Tech Talk.
I see this here. Is this the one from Don English here, the one-eyed cat?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a car torque converter and an RV converter? Is the RV okay for a car?
Okay, the difference really is that the RV converter is actually going to be much lower stall normally, but because it's going and pushing a very heavy vehicle, it's actually going to stall up. So typically an RV converter is going to be a much lower stall than say a car because it's going to be pushing a heavy vehicle. If you put the RV converter in a car, it's typically going to stall even lower than what a car RV is going to converter is going to be. Now that's just the rule of thumb. That doesn't mean it's always that way. There are some exceptions to the rule. You can put it in there, but I would recommend having a very stock style engine because it's going to want to lock. It's going to want to pull in, just off of idle, like probably at 1,000 RPM.
The way the best way to look at the RV is it's less than a factory converter.
Yes.
Right?
Everything's less. Yeah.
Right. And it's like literally all that is generally dependent upon weight. So take their worst situation, right?
Yep.
And if you put it like in a light car, I mean, that sucker almost lock up literally right off of idle.
Yeah, literally probably at idle because it's, exactly. As soon as you start moving fluid, it's going to want to start spinning the tires.
All right. Well, I wonder if Zorak has any experience in torque converters because I didn't even ask him.
Well, let's ask him. See what he's got.
What do you got, Zorak?
I have experience in flux capacitors.
Okay, well that's all he has experience in then, right? I don't know how that could be. I mean, that's not even the same genre. Danny Boyd says he woke up this morning and got himself a beer. He drank 3. Well, Don't drink too many of them, buddy. I'm surprised. I'm glad you made it to the show.
Yeah.
Because usually if I start drinking that early, I'm not making it to any shows or anything past like about
12.
Yeah.
12, I'm done. I'm back asleep.
Yeah, I'll be knocked out in just a few minutes. Yeah. Let's see. Buick Smith is asking, did the Bucades run into Lemons yet? We had a big problem with it. One, the event was scheduled on top of the No Name Nationals, which is I had to be at the No Name Nationals. There was no way around that. That we were going to. So then we slipped it over to Atlanta and tried to shift it to Atlanta. We got the car fired up, and it didn't have a high gear. And you got to remember and I don't think I explained a lot of this. The transmission I literally pulled out of some dude's backyard, paid $125 for it. It had pine needles and everything in the pan, including like a half an inch of water. And all I did was clean it out, pour some rubbing alcohol in there to displace the water, and brake clean the pan. And put a gasket in the filter and put it back together in hopes that it would work. And apparently maybe it's got some water in the valve body because it won't go into high gear. It goes through first and second, still has reverse. It doesn't slip or anything in any gear. It just won't go into high. So I'm assuming one of the spool valves inside the valve body is probably stuck. So I need to take it apart and fix that. The other thing was, no matter how I timed the engine, it would not run correctly. And the only thing I can think of is so Lemons, if you don't know, Lemons has a $500 limit for the entire car, right? Minus your safety equipment. Well, engine, transmission, drivetrain, all that doesn't fall under $500. So I put this 350 Buick together for $75, and that's what a set of new rings cost. Okay, so that was the only part that was new, was rings. I think the timing chain is stretched enough that I think that what's happening is it's actually off key, right? Like that it's probably one tooth off maybe, and maybe I got it put together with one tooth off. I don't know. It just has no beans whatsoever. We're gonna pull the motor back out.
Just degree the cam. You just degree the cam, and it'll tell you right then. Just take the valve cover off. Take one of the take all the spark plugs out to make it easier, and then just get TDC, and then you can just degree it on the intake, and that'll tell you right off the bat where your ICL is, your intake center line.
Right, but that doesn't fix it, right?
No, but that would tell you if you're a tooth off. So that would tell you whether or not you need to pull down the engine or not. Because if it's not a tooth off, then it's in the tune-up. Then it's not in the.
I tried 3 different carburetors and 2 different distributors, and it had the same problem.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'm assuming that I did it by process of elimination because I did the easiest things first, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I got to take the timing cover off, and if I'm going to do that, I got to pull the pan. because it's got this big custom-made crazy gonzo pan on it to fit in this Mercedes. So no, we didn't get back in there and get the thing going yet. Everybody decided to just take a break. It was too much pain in the ass at the moment, so we kicked it to the curb, and we're hoping for this year we can go to the Bowling Green event. I don't know if it's going to necessarily happen or not. So I don't know. Who knows? All right, shut up, Zorak. All right. I guess we're rambling on too much. Okay, let's see. I got to catch up. Professor P, Twisted Mopar Garage asks, let's see here. Professor P, I know the old switch pitch converter used in a lot of Buick, some Cadillac, Pontiac. Why hasn't there been used lately or even pursued currently? They are a neat deal converter.
Yeah, well, maybe Dallas, you can actually answer this one because I don't know the 100% how long they were used, but I do know that there was a very small window that they were used.
So they were only used from 64 to 67. 1964 to 1967.
So that tells you there's not a lot out there.
Right.
And to run a switch pitch converter means that you have to have a switch pitch pump, switch pitch valve body. I mean, there's a lot of different things in there that have to be switch pitch.
Right.
And
there is some unique stuff about it that is really interesting. Okay, so when it originally was built, was originally called the Super Turbine 400. That was when it came out in 1964 in Buick cars. Okay, in 1965, General Motors adopted it and ran it across the entire product line. But you remember the Buicks at that time in 64 would have all been nail head, so they had their own bell housing bolt pattern. But in 1964, GM also got to the point where they were trying to align the manufacturers within General Motors to where if you made a lug nut, everybody used the same dang lug nut, which was smart on their part, mass production, right? And this is where all this stuff started to happen. Okay, so if you look at 63, the Dynaflow Buick was in place. The Super Turbine 400, or which ended up being the Turbo 400, came out a year later. But all the cars went from right-hand and left-hand side lug nuts or lug studs to all of them being the same in 64. Okay, well, 65 came along and they standardized the transmission line. You had your ST Super Turbine 400, which had the BOP, or not the BOP, the nailhead Buick bell housing. Then you had your Buick Olds, or it wouldn't even been Buick Olds, it had been Olds Pontiac Cadillac had their bell housing, which is now known as the BOP. And then the Chevrolet bell housing all by itself. Well, Chevrolet has always been the hand job under the table for General Motors. They freaking love them guys, right? And no matter what they should have done is standardize that freaking transmission bell housing to use a BOP or a Chevrolet or all of them the same, right?
Yeah.
But what they did is they got rid of the Super Turbine 400 and then grafted it into the BOP and then kept the Chevrolet all by itself. The BOP engines were the only ones available with switch pitch or variable pitch as it was known, right? And it was an option for Oldsmobiles. Not a lot of them came with it. It was an option for Pontiac. Not a lot of them came with it. Cadillac, almost every single one of them got it. And then the Buicks themselves got it. But it was also an option on the Buick, but a lot more of them came with it. Now, it was a carryover thing from the Dynaflow transmission, which was actually just a 2-speed. And they had that variable pitch torque converter. And with another gear added in, the first gear, which was super low compared to the other gears in the Dynaflow, it was unnecessary to have that dual speed torque converter, that variable torque converter.
Yeah.
And it became excessive and expensive. They were losing money essentially on every single one. All they did was block the passage in it, changed the valve body and the torque converter, and it's not really changed much. It's literally just all you're doing is changing out your stator with your variable stator with a non-variable stator. That's it, right? And so they just eliminated the switch pitch, the variable pitch, after 1967, and everybody got a Turbo 400. What's neat is every single Turbo 400 transmission is capable of being a switch pitch if you can find the switch pitch parts.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The
That's
pump,
our part.
the valve body, The torque converter is proprietary to itself. Now you can move that torque converter to a turbo 400, and it will work in a turbo 400, but it'll just be one fixed pitch.
Yeah.
It won't do anything else. The hardest part is finding those parts.
Yeah. I remember rebuilding that tranny for you, and that was the hardest thing. Was actually the pump. It was getting the actual gasket for the pump, because it was a little slightly different, because it had some extra holes in slightly different areas, so it was a little funky.
And it's got a really small hole in one of them, and like most of them, the gasket is humongous.
Huge.
Yeah. All right. So let's see what else we got here. Oh, yes. Danny Boyd says water eats clutches. Yeah, it probably does. I just put it together and see what would happen for $125, right? Let's see. Dakota's Timeout's asking me, have I got the rear end made for the Buick? I can't wait to see it with them Kragers. No, I haven't had time to drop. I got to drive it all the way over to Fab Race Mod Repeat, and I mean, it's like 13 hours from me. So it's a long drive. I just haven't had time to get over there. So we're trying to lump it in where I do two things at the same time. So, yes, I know that water does make the clutches come apart, but I literally got a $500 limit on the car, right? That's the whole point. So I'm just living with what I can get, right?
We could probably just put a new valve body in it, right?
What's
you
that?
Put in that transmission?
I'm actually just swapping the valve body over from my Suburban transmission that the torque converter ate itself. It committed Subuku, I guess, and filled the pan full of, I don't know, torque converter parts, one microscopic flake of aluminum at a time. And so I'm just going to clean it out real good with some brake cleaner and stab it back together and throw it in there, because it actually has a Transgo shift kit in it.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's the thing. That's what I was going to recommend. Just change the valve body on. It should be fine.
Yep, should be totally fine. I'm thinking I can probably have the engine out, the timing issue repaired in one day, and then the tranny done in one day, and then have it back in probably like a third day.
Yeah.
So, Steve K, the Jetaway, this the GM transmissions of like 62 or 61 through 63. They're turds. God, it wasn't until that Turbo 400 came out that it got standardized. Let's see. So here's something interesting. 400 pump will go into a 350. I'm certain the valve body won't. The valve body will not, but if the pump is interchangeable, and here's something that would take some homework, and I'll get one. There was a Super Turbine 300 made, which is actually the predecessor to the Turbo 350. Okay, and it's a 2-speed switch pitch Buick Olds Pontiac transmission, came in the mid-size cars. The converters are interchangeable amongst the Super Turbine 400 or switch pitch Turbo 400 and the switch pitch 300, Super Turbine 300. But they both have different variable pitch numbers, right? So like the heavy cars had a fairly low stall, and if you use it in one of those lightweight cars, it's going to have an even lower stall. But now here's the opposite. You take one of them lightweight cars, like say a mid-size car with a 300 Buick in it, and you take that torque converter out and put it behind a 455. Now you're talking a 2500 stall, and then when it's on high stall, it's at 3500 or so. That's what makes it really cool. The other thing I found is really cool that I really want to try out is, you know how the Turbo 400, you can make them into a 2-speed now?
Yep.
Okay, what if you had a switch pitch 2-speed, right? How awesome would that be?
Oh yeah, that'd be like a 4. Yeah, that'd be like a 4-speed then. Yeah.
Right, but see, you get all the benefits of the 2-speed.
Yeah.
But you can have the, you know how like, and that's the thing with the turbo super fast. What is it? The Street Outlaws guys. They all got Turbo 400 2-speed with a bolt together torque converter with a lockup in it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the little guy at home. You can't afford no freaking $5,000 reed case transmission, right? In a 2-speed setup. But you could literally have a Super Turbine 300 that you get for peanuts with a switch pitch torque converter in it. And now you're cooking, because just a 5.3 LS with that kind of setup on there, that sucker would be moving pretty good. It'd be just be like a Glide, but it'd have a variable vane torque converter. So Yeah, Zorak is here. I don't know what he's doing right now. Let me check on him.
He should be good. Send it.
Oh, well, you're listening in on this conversation, Zorak.
Send it. So awesome.
Yeah. Let's see.
Oh no, go to the one right above it.
Right above it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so let me get rid of Zorak here. He's talking too much. And okay, Michael Schmidt. Is it possible to do a conservative nitrous boost on a low compression, long stroke engine at the 4 fun drag races? All I hear about is 150 shot or more boost. You can easily get away with 150 shot on a stock motor. Almost.
Yeah, any stock engine. Yeah, usually even without gap in the rings, 100 is pretty safe. 150, you're getting a little close to that number. Your tune-up's going to have to be right because you're going to want to the gap's going to want to expand a little bit and might hurt some things. But 150 shot usually is pretty safe on anything, as far as V8 goes.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the rule of thumb is 150 shot. But the neat thing is, if it's a conservative low compression motor, right, with a good long stroke, it might pick 150 horsepower up, but it probably will make close to 300 foot-pounds more torque.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
it'll just be like a hammer off the line. So be very cautious with it because if you have a stock drivetrain on
Shit
a low
rolls
compression
downhill.
motor, the block engine's probably going to handle it just fine. I'll bet you something's going to give up along the lines of 273 gears or peg leg rear end or
U-joints.
Let's say torque converter. U-joints is a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. U-joints and the straps, because those things are, low compression type deals, not going to have the best straps on them. Because mine were just like little straps with these tiny little bolts they went through, and I stripped those things right out.
Mine was the first time I used the Nitrous was on a 7.5-inch Ford, and in the burnout it broke the rear end. I did a burnout on Nitrous. As soon as I got it hooked up, of course, the first thing you do, right? Burnout on Nitrous, and it freaking gacked the rear end like bad. But a 7.5 Ford is actually pretty strong. I didn't expect it to. It ran down in the low 13s in a 3,400-pound T-Bird, so it wasn't too bad. Let's see. Danny Boyd says the transmission is what controls the switch pitch converter. Kind of, sorta.
The valve body.
And it's not really even the valve body, Shane. You remember when you took it apart? There's a kick down solenoid, and then there's another solenoid that looks just like it.
Yeah,
right?
but I remember that and there was also one up on the pump. There was like a
yes.
Yeah, there was one on the pump, and I think the governor, or there was something that had to do with the speed. It would send the fluid I'm reading this.
So if you look at a Turbo 400, it has an electronic kick down. It's just a 12-volt signal for a kick down, right, on the side. And it has a plug on the side that has a prong on it for your 12-volt kick down. On a switch pitch, it actually has 2 prongs on it. One is for the kick down, and then the other one is, instead of being horizontal, is vertical, and it's for the switch pitch control. And it was done with just switches on the throttle pedal.
Oh,
right?
that's right. That's what it was. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember it was electronic.
There's a guy named Bruce Rowe that makes an electronic controller for it, turning it on and off based on engine load and vacuum and RPM. That's what I have on my Suburban. It works fantastic. All right. Let's see. Yeah, Twisted Mopar Garage. Brake switch control is it as far as what stall is used to. Okay. Yes, so it used to have one on the brake and one on the gas pedal. And if you pushed on the brake, it would leave it in high stall for as soon as you let off the brake, it'd go back to low stall.
Oh, well, that's pretty good. Yeah.
And then, or you had the one on the throttle pedal. If you matted it wide open, well, you had wide open throttle, right? And it would go to high stall. But then it would also, I want to say it would kill the kick down on it. Yeah, kick down came in later once the governor RPM came up on the governor. All right. Let's see what else we got for. Was it Dizzy Izzy is here?
Hey, what's going on, Dizzy?
What do we got here? Flathead Plymouth 6-cylinder peg leg bouncy POS. It's a lot going on. Let's see here. Levi's Backyard Performance is asking, what would the 3-speed hold power-wise with the Peanuts transmission, because a Turbo 350 is only good for 458 horsepower and a 4,000-pound car? I would have to say that Super Turbine 300 is probably about the same, if not maybe weaker, just because it. Well, let's see. Let me think. It probably would be about the same, to be honest with you. It's the same size case. It has the same tail shaft housing. It's the same length as the Turbo 350, and I think the thing that would probably hinder it the most is most likely, because see, first gear on it's like I don't know, what's second gear on a Turbo 350, like 247? Or no?
245. 240. No. Second gear is 140 something.
140, yeah, because it's 240 is first.
Yeah.
So
I think it's 150, I think is what it is.
That's where it starts out at, as I think.
Here, I'll look it up. You said 350? What kind of transmission again?
Super Turbine 300.
All right, let's see what we got. Wow, it's 176.5. That's the.
Oh, that's about the same as a Power Glide. Isn't it 178 a Power Glide?
Yeah, that's the first one. Is one. Yeah, 176.5. Wow, that's crazy.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I bet you that thing would probably work pretty good.
Yeah. See here, wait a second.
I'm gonna try it out. I got one, and I got my turbocharged 350 Buick I've been working on.
It was designed to start in low gear, providing a multiplication shift pattern. Wow, that's crazy. Huh. This is Wikipedia, so I'm not making sure it's 100% correct, but
Well, it gives you a better frame of reference than not knowing anything, right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I'll answer Dakota's question here. I guess my Turbo 350, it's been rebuilt, but to stock specs. Is there some easy stuff I can do to make it last longer, or may it be okay? The 455 of my Trans Am should make about 4 to 450 horsepower and over 500 foot-pounds of torque. Is there anything you can do now that it's buttoned up? Not really.
Yeah.
If this was starting from the get-go and you were having it rebuilt, I would say, okay, you use a 4L60E Planetary. Isn't that the big one?
Yeah.
For the Turbo 350? They have like a stamped steel or a cast iron Planetary setup that gives up. Or I think it actually has one more pinion, right?
I would actually run more clutches too. I'd run the thinner clutches so you could put an extra clutch in each one of those. Yeah. But yeah, the torque is what's going to kill the thing. It's not really the 350, and also probably the weight of the vehicle. What's a?
It's a Trans Am with a 455, and it's like a 70s style, Gen 2 Trans Am.
So 3,800 pounds, something like that.
I think they're generally around 34 to 36.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, never put slicks on it.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Just keep the tires are aired up in the back. You'll be good.
Yeah, as long as it's burning the tires off, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
So he says he feels like, what I feel like pushing the limit on it.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Yeah, you're over that. See, Levi's got it kind of nailed here. 453 or 458 horsepower is kind of the number. I don't know. I've never met the demise of Turbo 350. They usually just blew up on their own, like driving to work.
They were low power.
They were one of those transmissions. It was literally like, I guess I don't know what else you would put it in the same category. C4 Ford. Mm-hmm. You driving down the road, and all of a sudden, just stopped working. Yeah, it was just you didn't know when it was going to happen or what caused it, really.
On the other hand, a 904 really only blew up basically when you're shifting in second gear, because it strips out those teeth that go into the ring gear from the input shaft. That's what actually goes out on those when you're putting power into them. I know, I've done it many times.
Huh. Oh, well, what does Zorak have to say here? I don't know what he
Well,
has to say.
I have experience in flux capacitors.
Oh, of course he does, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay. And everybody knew that was going to happen. I mean, it's Zorak, right? So
That's so funny, dude. That's actually really funny, man. Yeah. All right.
let's see. Okay, so Levi's saying that's why I went to the Turbo 400. What they will handle for little investment is pretty cool. Although I'd say we'll be going with aftermarket case soon.
Yeah.
I don't think you're anywhere near where you need an aftermarket case yet, Levi.
Well, what's he making for power?
I want to. It's a turbocharged LS, and he has it in that like a 73. I don't know if it's a 73 for sure, but it's a Laguna S3. Remember seeing it at the at No Name Nationals? But I think he blew the tranny up, and it had like maybe turbo 350 or 460E. I don't know.
What kind of torque is he going to be, about 800 foot-pounds or more?
Oh, I don't know. He's probably going to have to answer. He's going to have to answer that. Oh man, I hit my microphone. What am I doing over here? Okay, let's see if he's going to chime in.
Yeah, I'm going down to the bottom. Let's see here. He says Dallas, the TH350 is good for 600 horse in a 2,800 pound car. He hasn't chimed in beyond that yet.
Okay. Oh, Buick Smith is saying, did you see this question?
No, I didn't.
Okay, 700 R4 and a 71 Buick, 256 rear gear. The trans has 1600 stall. With the tire size I have it will be around that at 1600, 1700 RPM at 60 miles an hour. Will the lockup be going in and out all the time?
If you wire it so that way you can turn it on, so that way it doesn't. Yeah, this actual switch. Then no, you'll be fine. But a 256 gear with that, I mean, I had my setup was a 26.3 diameter tire. I had basically, the same setup.
He's capitalizing on this. I don't know if this is a Buick V6. I can't remember. I remember him telling me about his combination probably 6 months ago.
Yeah,
I can't
seems
remember if it's
low.
Well, for a V6 Buick, it would be probably about right with a 700 R4, right? Because that first gear is so low. But I don't think he'd be able to use overdrive at all because I don't think the thing would have enough torque to push anything down the road.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Maybe like a 323 or even a 355, because a 323 would probably put you at about 2,200 RPM, right? 2,300?
If he's using a Buick 350, I could actually see this all day long.
Yeah.
The only problem that I would look at is, let's say it is a 350 Buick or a 300 or 340, something in the small block V8 family. The RPM's going to get to the point where it's so low, it's probably not making enough oil pressure to lubricate the engine properly, is what I'm thinking. I mean, those things are inherently bad about oil lubrication anyway.
Yeah.
And then when you slow them way down, right, there's... Now, 16 to 1700 RPM should generate at least 35 to 40 pounds of oil pressure, which should be plenty. But
seems like it's going to be lugging. I like that 2,000, 2,200 mark for anything that's a 6-cylinder. That way you can kind of get some sort of like torque out of the damn thing.
Okay. Oh, I did find the one you were talking about. Dallas, the Turbo 350 is good for 600 horsepower and a 2,800 pound car.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really look at numbers wise on them, to tell you the truth, because I've had those suckers blow up at 240 horsepower, and they also have had them blow up at, using stuff that was 450 horse. Mm-hmm. And then I know a guy that I sold him a Buick 350 a couple of years ago and was putting a Turbo 350 behind it. I sold him a 455, for his 70 Skylark. And he's been abusing that thing for 2 years now, and I mean like not a little bit abused, like 20-year-old abuse, right? Like rode hard, put away wet, and it's still running around. So who knows? Let's see. Do they make any fancy pan gaskets that don't leak? Is that for Turbo 350? The ones that used to be the Ticket, used to be the Moroso one. They had one that was like an anti-leak, really awesome gasket. It was reusable and all kinds of stuff.
You know what, the new pan gas, the new pans, the aluminum ones that bolt on, if you just get that really good black style of gasket. That's the really thick paper one. And you just torque them up there, man. I've never had a problem with any one of those. And I just stick them on the one side on the pan, so that way it goes on and off the tranny just fine.
Man, the only ones I've had problems with is the switch pitch Turbo 400.
Is that the one?
Dude, that one, literally, there was a spot in my driveway as big as the Suburban, and then no matter what I've done, I've pulled the pan off like 9 times, just trying to seal it up. And it has a TCI cast aluminum pan on it.
Really?
Yes.
And is it coming from the corners or something, or where's it coming from?
Where's it coming from? I replaced every seal, every O-ring, every gasket I could possibly find. And it's still, no matter what, leaks. It's like, I'm beginning to wonder if the case is cracked.
That's weird. Because I've never, honestly, whenever you get an aluminum pan on it, you just put one of those like little paper gaskets on it. You're good to go because it makes it even load on it all the way around.
I've never had any problems. Just this Super Turbine 400 switch pitch. It's pissing me off.
What I would do is just get it hot one time, clear it off. It's got to be in one little corner if you're seeing it, and clean it up, and then just, put some dye in it. Yeah, why don't you try that? Throw some dye in the damn thing, and get that black light.
I don't know. Can you put dye in it?
Yeah.
Transmission fluid?
Yeah, I've dyed it before. No big deal.
All right. Well, I'll try it out. Levi's Backyard Performance, Dallas, will be this year around 900 horsepower. And I'm unsure of torque. I'm certain if you're running that turbocharged 5.3, it's probably somewhere close to that same number.
Yeah.
But at the time, I think it was almost 600 foot-pounds on a light dyno, meaning they don't try and give me the biggest number that they can. Well, the reason why I was asking is like Turbo 400 2-speed, the number starts to go up significantly when you start doing stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. And when you start talking aftermarket case, I remember when the Reed case came out. I think that's who makes it. Is that right? Reed?
Yeah.
Or was it ATI?
Reed makes one.
They were like $2,000 when they came out in like 2010. I'm sure that case is probably more than that now. And then the killer part is going to be all the internals that go with it are like, if you don't use stock Turbo 400 or 4L80E type parts, you're going to be freaking burning up the dollars, man. I could see you having a $5,000 automatic 2-speed.
You know that the Reed case right now, Summit Racing, you're looking at 1918.
Yeah, so $2,000.
$2,000. Yep.
Yeah. So that's just the case.
Yeah. In stock, 10 available. Go get it.
I'll pass. I'll use my regular Turbo 400 case till it die.
Until it splits.
Yeah. So Buick Smith says in an old Poston Cat lists gear ratio sets for the 300.
Oh, look at that.
189, 190, 194, 196, or 198. The front half of the case is the same as a 300. The rear is the same as a Glide, so the gears should work.
There you go. Good to know.
And they list all those gears that you could actually put in there, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty bitchin'.
That is cool.
But Poston's long gone now, so I don't know if anybody makes anything for the Super Turbine 300. Let's see here. Let's see if we can catch up.
Yeah, I'm
Okay, so he's saying, yes, the 71 has a 350. The El Camino may end up with the V6. Okay, so he's working with the 350. I think that would actually work pretty good, as long as the thing has oil pressure going down the road, because 15 to 1600 RPM is where it starts to really start to get into its power or its torque band on that Buick 350.
Yeah, that 350 would be great there.
Yeah, it'd probably do that 700 R4 with the 256 gear, I think. But you would also probably have a top speed of 5 billion miles an hour.
Yeah, right. You can go visit Zorak out there in the space,
Oh, Zorak. Yeah.
Zorak, yeah.
Oh, come on, really?
Come on, sucker. That's funny.
All right. Let's see. But Levi says, also remember the car weighs 4,000 pounds, and that's the kicker with transmission. A lot of times they spec it for horsepower to weight, but in the upcoming years, we will end up heading for 1,500 just to say I did it. Yeah, 4,000-pound car. That's not actually too bad in a turbocharged situation because it loads that turbo so quick. I think the one that would be taking the most abuse here, not so much the tranny, I think everything's going to be looking at torque converter, right? It will be, almost flash steaming that transmission fluid inside that converter.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And actually, everyone's funny. They say that they do it by weight and horsepower. They're actually done by torque and weight. And most people, like even TCI, they just transfer it to horsepower, but actually it's mostly just torque and weight because that's really the killer. Horsepower is on the other end.
Let's see here. Buck Does It says Dallas 455 rear main seal. I read that a Ford 460 rear seal can be used. What do you think? No. A Ford 460 seal is the one that they use in the 350 Buick. That's a 3-inch main. The 455, actually there's a company, it's called, I think it's like BOP Performance or something like that. They're out of like Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, somewhere around there. Up there up north in the great frozen north, right? But they sell a neoprene rear seal, and that's what I actually use. It's actually for a Pontiac, and you got to cut it down to where it has essentially 10 thousandths of crush. But those are the ones that I've been using, and I've had pretty dang good luck with them. The 460 rear main seal is for the 350 Buick.
Yeah, I've been getting this rear main seal from a place called Fast Fish, and the rear main seal is a complete circle, and you actually cut it with a razor blade, slip it into it, and then reseal it. It actually works really good.
Dr. Art brings up a good question. Dallas, is the converter draining back into the pan when you park it? Because in the thing will leak them out, or what?
Yeah, it's basically drain back. He's talking about drain back, and it could be coming out the tube.
Oh, or maybe the vent or something, huh?
Or or it could be the vent.
I
The vent's
wonder,
gonna be on the top.
isn't there a check valve in the pump for that?
There should be a check valve in the pump, but remember that was the early version, so some of those don't always come with those. Like my wife's car in '69 in her 904 didn't have before I changed that out, you basically would have to start it up and let it fill up with fluid. It didn't drain back, so I always put like a later style 904 in those things. But I don't remember when we did that one. I don't remember, but that is a thing that does happen.
Well, you know what? And then I wonder. Now it's got me wondering because see, that transmission is a '67. Right, it was the last year. It was the only year that you could get a Buick model with a BOP bell housing on it, right? Because that's the year the big block Buick came out, the 400, 430. This one's out of a Riviera. It's out of a '67 Riviera. I'm kind of wondering if I bet it doesn't have a drain back set up in it. I bet it probably drains everything back to the pan every time.
Yep. That's a good point.
And that's probably what I'm looking at is it might be over full.
Could be.
I never thought of that because the case and the pan only holds so much.
Yes.
Right? And that converter will hold 8 quarts.
A lot.
Right?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. And then if you fill it up to where it's at on the dipstick where it's normally at, maybe it needs to be a quart low or a quart or 2 quarts low because of drain back.
Yeah.
But,
That's a good one. Fill it up to the bottom of the fill mark, If you got deep pan in that one, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So on the dipstick, because you have all that fluid there, so when you fill it up, just fill it up to the bottom of the full mark. It doesn't need to be all the way to the top because you got a deep, pickup on that. So that way, when it drains back, you have all that extra space in there for the fluid to come back in. Try that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, it's a good thing that we're the best mechanics on here. So,
The mechanic! Me!
Oh, great.
He's not the mechanic. We are.
Yeah, that's funny. I like that. Yeah, I'm looking through. I don't see many questions today. So on the 10 Ram for carbs.
So Buick Smith is saying that the Caminist Buick 350 is a 71 TA 284 88H. Oh, dude, that's gonna put that. Okay, you got a goofed up combination here. Okay,
Yeah.
you got a really tall rear end gear. you got an overdrive transmission, and you got a camshaft that's meant to make power pretty much outside the area you're even going to use the engine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You need to knock this down by about 20 degrees.
Yeah. That cam either needs to go or that engine is not the right engine for that combo.
Or the gearing needs to go.
Or, yeah, you need a 373 gear with the 700 R4. That's what I would run. Because it'll be one quick bastard and it'll still be able to run down the interstate.
Yep.
But, let's see here.
Right. That's a great point.
Oil's good at killing weeds.
Yeah.
You know, I had a discussion about this before. Is like literally the oil comes from the earth. How is it possible that if you put it on the earth that it's bad for it?
I said the same thing. We pump it out of the ground, so if it goes right back on top and it goes back in, how's that bad?
That it'd be like water comes from the earth, and if you put it back on the earth, it's bad. It's the same kind of crap. I don't understand.
Yeah.
Let's see. LC2 Kid says, "Sup, y'all having a damn blizzard here in St. Paul, Minnesota. Turbo 350 Duraprene pan gasket, dry with flat pan rail and not over torqued, works great." Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Answering your guy's question. And he's up there having a blizzard, so hopefully, I'm wishing it's a DQ blizzard, but I'm thinking it's probably the other blizzard that you're talking about. It's literally like 72 degrees here in Tennessee.
Yeah, it's hot. We got the windows open right now, and I had the AC on in my car today. So yes,
I don't know what the deal is. I've actually been sick all day. If you can tell, my nose is really red. I just been sick all day. It just hit me as soon as I woke up. But I pushed through. I did a half a day. At lunchtime, I just called it quits and freaking napped out. And I was napped out till 20 minutes before this show started. Reed has a super Hydra case for 4LE. I can only imagine what that sucker costs. That's probably like $5,000 case.
Wow.
So Levi's saying they're $5,600 out the door. We asked. Gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, some of this money stuff is just getting out of control.
Yeah.
Right.
It's gonna kill it. It's gonna kill it. You're gonna have. It's almost gonna be like you're gonna have people that are just gonna be scrounging up hot rods or the super elite fast guys. There's really not gonna be any mediocres anymore. You know.
Yeah. Well, I was always the mediocre guy because I could never afford to be the fast guy, and I could usually outthink the slow guy. Right. Yeah. Craig Chitto saying he saw a nailhead tunnel ram manifold and carbs for sale on Marketplace, Long Island, New York. You should go get that sucker because they're probably worth a mint.
Yeah, especially nailhead. Yeah. Man, we're kind of far behind.
I'm trying to catch up right now, and I'm scrolling pretty fast. I just don't want to miss any questions.
Yeah, me too. While you're doing that, hey Patrick, before you answer this one, Patrick, I'll talk to you later about piston rings for your boost for your engine. All right.
2 more degrees should be good. Send it.
Oh, see, he's answering some questions for us.
There you go.
All right.
Neutral for a few seconds to spin the pump. Yeah. That's exactly what the wife used to have to do. She had to start it up in neutral, and then run it, and then you put it in reverse. It would, and then go into gear. So yeah, it was one of those.
All right. Well, let's see what else we can find. Do you see anything in there, Mr. P?
I'm looking through. Yeah, just Patrick was asking about piston rings, but I'll talk to him later about that. Oh, Dust Devil Garage. Question. I have a 488 gear in a Duster with 31 16.5 tires. What is my actual gear ratio with those tires? Oh, so he's 31. He wants to know his gear.
Okay. Is this it?
Yeah, that's the one.
31, 16.5. Okay, that's how wide they are. So 31 inches tall. What is my actual gear ratio with those tires? Well, generally gear ratios are, the standard is a 28-inch tall tire. Right?
Yeah, is that what he's asking? I mean,
he wants to know what his gear ratio is now. It's got a 31-inch tall tire on it. So you're looking at 3 inches difference you're looking at almost 3 gear ratios different, right?
I see what he's asking now. Okay, basically just do a ratio. So like, let's just say if you're doing here, I didn't understand what he was asking at first, but now I get it. If you go to just get a calculator, and let's just say you have let's say a 28-inch tire, divide that by what gear? What's a standard gear ratio? 355, right? So that's going to be that's 7.88. So that's your ratio, right? That's your actual ratio. So if you want to figure out what that would be, go and take same thing. Take your 31, divide that by 4.88. So that's going to be 635. So just so we know, if you were to go like say 513 with that same number, that's going to be 604. So that would actually be a lower number. So if you're looking for something that's going to be close to that 733, 31 divide that by 4.56, 31 by 456 will put you in the 6.79, and then a 430 would put you right at about 720. So if that's what you're asking, I think that's what you're asking. So a 28,355 would put you right at 31,430 would put you at about the same ratio, if that's what you're asking. Is that, you think that's what he's asking?
He's wanting to know what his actual ratio is right now with 488 gear. And I would say, just by Shane's quick math he did there, it's going to be like you had of a 410 in that car.
Oh, is that what he's asking?
With a 28-inch tall tire, yeah.
Okay.
It'd be similar to you having a 28-inch tall tire with a 410 gear.
Okay, so if he has a 28, let me just do 28, divide that by, what's the kind of gear? So so 488. Now I see what he's asking. Okay. Yeah, about 410. Let's just go with that.
I'm sure it's all something different, but I mean, it's just, the rule of thumb that I use is like you literally just go, okay, so 28-inch tall tire, right? If you're looking at almost everything is based off a 28-inch tall tire, and the gear numbers are in relation to that.
Yeah, so divide that by 488. Okay, now so 28 488. So so that comes out to 573. So then if he goes to 31 divided by 4.12, that's 756. So it's not even in the ballpark. So he would need like a
Right, he's not running 28-inch tall tires, though. He's running a 31-inch tall tire. So the way I normally look at it is all gear ratios are based off a 28-inch tall tire, right? When you're going 3 inches bigger in diameter, is essentially 3 different gear sets taller.
Yeah, but you can do it with just a ratio, too. Because
you can. I'm just saying, I'm just giving you a quick rule of thumb that's just kind of give you an idea. And there's, what's weird about it is when you get to like the 9-inch Ford, the Mopar 8 3/4, when you get into the 4 section, there is freaking 20 different gear sets in there, from let's say from a 488 all the way to like a 410. There's just a ton of them, right? And that's because that's a majority of where everybody uses for drag racing, and based on their combination, they want to have the ideal gear, right? So you might only have 410, 430, and 456 and 488. I don't know. But usually what happens is there's a bunch of weird ones in there, especially ones I'm not familiar with. 8 3/4 Mopar, 9-inch Ford. There's freaking gears all over the place. You know, the one that always goofed me up was like the Ford 9-inch with like a 390 gear, and then or 389. You're like, why in the world would someone even make a gear like that, right? Like, why even bother?
Yeah.
Let's see here. If we can catch up. Oh, man. 38 POS Racing says we have something like 18 degrees here with freezing rain, snow.
That sucks.
That sounds like the Midwest February I'm familiar with. Oh, man. Here's Chris Cox beating me up about the gratuitous plug for the open season shakedown. Yes, I do. I can't put the picture up. If you want, I'm looking at it right here. But the first AHRA event this year is the open season shakedown at Northeast Dragway, where we're running brackets side by side with heads up racing. So you got a heads up street class, a true heads up street class. And then we have a 28 10.5 NA class as well. So we're going to give that a go and see how it works. But that's coming up March 11th, Northeast Dragway. Yes.
Hey, we're getting close to. Oh yeah, what's this?
Let's see. Clint's asking, do y'all talk about the competition products thingy yet? Some pretty good discounts. Yeah, we actually talked about it at the end or at the beginning. I dropped that on everybody. Was it yesterday? Yesterday I sent out the email. We got everything in place. It's all up and going. Yes, that thing is moving quite well. There was some feedback right away. I don't know if anybody's looked at it, see how much of a discount they're getting on anything. I looked at the 11 Buick parts they have, and all 11 of them are still out of my price range. So, no, I take that back. I could get a cam for $200, which was a hell of a deal. But that's the only thing. They didn't have much available for a Buick. They didn't even have a gasket set available, to be honest with you. And that's just because I imagine all their stuff is just like Summit was. Well, okay. I don't know if anybody here was a big car nerd way back when Summit was like literally like a pamphlet magazine.
Yes, I do. I remember that.
Okay. It was, if you were anything but a Chevrolet guy, you were screwed, right? That's all that was in that book. Nobody ever looked at it. The one everybody used to covet was the PAW Bible.
PAW Bible.
Yeah, and that sucker was the real deal. Now, the only reason the PAW is not here today to sing you a tune to bed about how well you save some on some parts and what they have in stock was that they refused to go internet-based. And Jig, Summit, all them cats jumped in with both feet and ran these dudes out of business. PAW was the real deal.
Before PAW, for me, it was J.C. Whitney.
And J.C. Whitney had cool stuff, too.
Yeah, because remember, they would have, it was all in black and white, and they would have that little shiny, like when it was chrome, they had the little bright, bing.
I remember my first time I got a J.C. Whitney, because you used to be able to call them and get that magazine sent to you for free, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I got one sent home, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, oh, I got to go show my dad these cool race parts. So we were looking, I was, showing him my race parts magazine. He probably cared zero about any of it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, look at these parts, right? Who the hell puts a stupid looking footprint gas pedal on their car, right? Because they used to have that footprint gas pedal. It was like 1995, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it was in every magazine. They try to sell it like mad. But I imagine it probably broke his heart when I said that, because that was like the coolest thing to have on a gasser from like, early 60s era.
You know what? My very first thing I did when this was in high school, I collected aluminum cans, and I still have I actually casted an aluminum foot gas pedal in high school. Yeah, and I still have it. So it's aluminum cans.
Lukey B's chiming in here saying that we have a lot more than what's listed, Dallas. If you don't see something, give me a call. I actually just ordered a catalog, so I was hoping that there was more stuff in the catalog because there didn't seem to be a lot online. And I'm not bagging on you guys at all. I really think the whole idea is you got to start somewhere, right? And that's what I was getting at with the Summit story was that's where them guys started at, was literally just Chevrolet stuff. You couldn't get your stuff in there. And it wasn't until they branched off and got bigger when they went on internet that you could actually get your stuff for anything else.
Is that Luke? Is that Luke?
Yeah.
I thought it looked good. I'm glad he's here because actually he's going to be part of the Hardcore Tech Talk today.
Oh, are you going to talk about him? Good things?
Oh, yeah. Well, we'll see. Yeah, it's all good things. I was going to play with him.
Oh, come on.
Come on, sucker.
I guess we're talking way too much. Let's see. Lout Burns says, I just ordered a new TKX transmission from Silver Sport Transmission Company, but those guys treated me great. They're experts in their field. Definitely recommend. I don't even know who that is. Silver Sport Transmission Company. I've never heard of them.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't know on that one either. Well, we're getting close. Let's do hardcore tech. Let's do hardcore tech. Why not?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
We're kind of caught up. Okay, so on this hardcore tech, we're gonna go into Time Machine here, and we're gonna go back about 3 weeks. We had Luke from he's Howard's Cams, right?
Yes, he's Howard's Cams. Yeah.
It's Howard's Cams. Okay. So the only one that I ever got blown up on, as far as Slant Daily Garage, was on the very last one, which was the 310,000 RPM type of engine,
The modified production one.
Yeah. And so what I did is, people were like, well, how could you guys be so wildly different? So now after the show, I did talk to me and Luke talked, and we actually talked once after that about some cylinder head stuff, but we talked about camshafts. And so we went back and we wanted to see how we both got our numbers. Okay. So me being, in my 40s, he's in his early 30s. So when I think of pro stock, the first thing I go to is 350 Chevy or, Chevrolet, Chrysler, or like a Ford of that sort nature. When he's thinking pro stock, he's thinking LS, right? Okay, so this is the reason why you have to give all your cam guy the information. So all you guys out there who got your desktop dynos, all right, let's fire them up. And we're going to basically go to, like, say, a 302 Chevy. Just put a 302 Chevy in there with a 4-inch bore and a 3-inch stroke. We're going to go to 14-to-1 compression on this one, 1,000 CFM, tunnel ram, large step headers, and as far as your camshaft, we're going to go to drag race, high speed, obviously a roller. So I'll go through that again. 302, 4-inch bore, 3-inch stroke, 14-to-1, 1,100 CFM, tunnel ram, large step headers. We're going to go to drag race, high speed with a roller. Now, when you go in for the cylinder heads, we'll do mine. Let's do Luke's first. Luke is thinking of an LS and how. And when you put in an LS and you're looking at, like, say, the cylinder heads, go to the canted rectangular pro stock ported heads. Now, there was a company that just did this. I think it was called Spinal Tap, or EFA University did one. And they had about 472 CFM at, let's just call it 700 lift. So if you put in Luke's cam, which is 268, 276 on a 106 ICL and a 106 lobe separation angle. You put that in there, and we're not looking at max horsepower. We're just going to look at trends. His engine, with his cylinder head setup, that's the key, is the cylinder head setup. It made power to 10,000 RPM exactly. Let's take that exact same setup, and now, instead of the cylinder heads that he had, put in the wedge pro stock, because I was thinking of Chevrolet, Chrysler, Ford, which have like a wedge style of head. Those have a max flow of about 300 CFM. I'm thinking 1970s, 1975 pro stock, which, W2 heads flowed right at 300 CFM. And the valves are going to be about a 208, 165 for his and for mine, because that's about the biggest you can get with a 4-inch bore. You put in my cam specs, 284, 296 on a 110 lobe separation angle on a 110 ICL. And what do you get? A camshaft that makes power to 10,000 RPM. And mine makes peak torque right at about 7,000 to 7,500. I forgot to give Luke's. His made peak torque at 65 to 7,000. So both camshafts with the cylinder heads that we had in mind worked perfect. So both cams worked. They were absolutely correct. But why they're so wildly different is because we didn't talk about, when Dallas gave us our setup, we didn't talk about cylinder head flow. And that's how imperative it is to get cylinder head flow, because these things are just air bumps. And you can compensate for crappy head flow with a camshaft. So his flowed 472 CFM, so his camshaft was literally 20 degrees smaller because he had all that head flow. Mine had only 300 CFM, and I had 20 degrees more, and they made the exact same power to the exact same point. And in fact, I went one more, and I actually ran a dyno. Now, I did this on a very high-end setup. So his made 783 horsepower at 10,000 RPM and 500 foot-pounds of torque. Mine made 792 horsepower at 10,000 RPM and 491 torque. So basically, they were within about 9 horsepower and 9 foot-pounds of torque with two wildly different combinations of cylinder head and camshafts, but they all made power at the same peak and the same torque, about the same numbers, about 500 difference, just because I had a wider lobe separation angle than him, and that's the only reason why it moved mine up about 500 RPM. Other than that, And that's how I was waiting for this. It was too hard to describe it to every person who sent that in. But that's the reason why he's right and I was right exactly on both camshaft specs, because we didn't talk about cylinder head flow. So that's how I justify that. So Luke, you're justified, buddy.
You need 370 degrees duration.
Okay.
Right. So, yeah. So like Luke said, those would run door to door. Exactly. So that's what I was getting at, is that when you give these numbers, you have to know all the cylinder head flow. So that's why it's always worth the money when you buy cylinder heads. Just have them flowed, and don't have the generic flow that they give you, because every bench is going to be different. I would always, whatever they flow on their bench, just take 15% off of it, and that's what it's really going to flow on an engine. I mean, for real, because the cylinder head flow numbers are going to sell the heads. Basically, that's what I got for the tech talk. So I hope that's.
Well, A Cove says here, my takeaway was both cam doctors are quite good.
Yeah, exactly, because we both nailed the combination. And I went through and did all the different setups on either one of them, on all the cam numbers we did, and all 4 cam setups would have been exactly right, and they were all within about 500 RPM of each other. That was all different setups. The boat, the streetcar, the circle track was literally dead on. They were almost identical. And this one right here, this one was the only one that was wildly different, but they actually came out literally the same.
And Lukey B is saying, talk about SB2 heads and what happens when you put a 2-inch pipe on them.
Right, exactly. So that's basically what he was looking at, was those the type of heads, where I was thinking like just a pro stock style head of the 70s,
Right. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
The carburetor.
Uh-oh.
When you add big extra jets to the carburetor, it makes a lot of extra black smoke.
Oh, okay. So this is coming from somebody that's a genius,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see. Levi's asking, Lukey B, what kind of aftermarket Turbo 400 cases you got scratch and dent pricing prefer?
Right.
Hey. Well, I just run that Turbo 400 until she blows up. There's a lot of guys running stock case Turbo 400s with a JW Ultra Bell on them, right? I'd ask Lukey B about that.
Yeah.
I mean, those things will handle. How do you think guys were running big numbers before these Reed cases that came out in 2011, right? Ran big numbers on a stock case.
Yeah, I've seen them survive. You just got to be good with the tune-up and just don't hit the tires so damn hard. That's what kills us, that first gear.
Yeah, and the big one was like, put a good cooler on that sucker. It's not going to, I mean, it'll generate some heat, of course, if it's a heavy car.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I would put 2 on them. Put 2 on them and then run them in parallel.
Oh, the coolers?
Yeah. Don't run them in series. Run them in parallel. It slows the fluid down through the cooler, and then it actually makes them that much better as far as transfer
efficiency.
Yeah. Because you're going slower through it.
Yeah, I would literally run a stock Turbo 400 case until I started blowing them up.
Yeah.
And it was a case problem.
Yeah. If I was running twin turbos on something, I would feel comfortable going 850 in a quarter with the stock case. If I was running a supercharger and hitting it that hard at that kind of low RPMs, because they're a little bit more brutal in how they hit, 850 I'd still feel decently comfortable with the 400 in stock case.
Yeah, you'd have performance race parts inside of it, but the case is generally one of the last things. If you think about it, the perfect transmission is set up to where the case really doesn't matter, right? That's when you have the ideal situation. Now, the Turbo 400, the only reason that it's, well, one, they got the engineering right on it, but 2, if you've ever taken one of those things apart, that thing was probably literally put on paper in 1959.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. It is like the most archaic, simple little transmission I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I bet you there's one I know of that's probably simpler, the 727 Chrysler, and that's because it came out before that, right? The engineering just wasn't there. I mean, when you take a Turbo 400 apart, you don't need any special tools, not one. Okay. The other thing is, it's held together primarily with snap rings without eyelets on them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clips.
So that's before, right? That's before the snap ring plier.
Yeah.
That means you could take it out with a screwdriver.
And they're designed for that. They're actually twin lift just for that.
Right. So it's like, this thing is not too, I don't know, current when it comes to technology wise. It is a robust piece. It's big, bulky, eats up a lot of power. That's the problem you get when you look at older heavy duty transmissions. They do the job, but it's literally like, I don't know, it'd be like putting a silencer on a shotgun, I guess. Does it do anything? Probably not. Like, I don't know. The Turbo 400, I guess that was a bad analogy. The Turbo 400 is a brutal way of changing gears. Okay, you pay for it because it's like 59 horsepower or 70 horsepower or whatever it is. The thing sucks up, but it takes every bit of that abuse that you throw at it.
Yeah, it does. It does. But when you're running a turbo and you're thinking 50 horsepower, you just put an extra half a boost into it, pound of boost. You're good to go.
Yeah, that's nothing. And the good thing about the Turbo 400, there's a lot of good things that people don't realize. They always talk about the horsepower numbers that it takes or the weight or whatever. You want to know something really cool about a Turbo 400? You could literally take the cooler off, route the two lines together, and drive that around as long as you never tow something with it. Right? It is so big. It's its own heat sink. Okay? And it's aluminum case, so it dissipates a lot of heat really quick. It actually will go quite a long time with having a plug cooler on it. That's one dumb thing I learned about them, was that they do take some abuse. The only downside is most of the time they come behind a big block, which will put a lot of heat in them pretty quick. If you had something small engine, like say a 307 Olds would be on front of a Turbo 400, you'd probably never have to even run a transmission cooler.
No.
Let's see. Lukey B is saying need for an aftermarket case has more to do with the inner support works. You'll run into issues with the deflection and high power applications. Yeah, on the main shaft, right? So it starts flexing the main shaft all over the place.
Yeah, and it's got three shafts in it that bolt together or clip together. So yeah.
Let's see. First Responder Garage says, is there any other transmission that only applies for upshifts other than Turbo 400?
Applies as in like applies a band or what's he talking about?
Well, a Turbo 400 doesn't okay. So that's the difference between the 727 and the Turbo 400. Doesn't the 727 band apply like every gear change?
The band applies on second. So basically, you have a front band. If you manually put it in first, it doesn't, right? So like if you launch it, it doesn't band apply, and then like second gear is a band, and then third is just all the clutches. Is that what he's asking?
What I think it is okay. So the big difference between the Turbo 400 that I was always taught and the 727 Chrysler, because those were the two first heavy duty big transmissions, right? That I'm aware of. The 727, they used to neutral drop them and they'd puke their guts out because the high-speed drum would explode, right?
That's because of the sprag that's in the back.
Sprag would let go.
The sprag is in the case. On the 400, it's in the drum. It's in the it's in the rear drum. So that's the difference. And when you neutral drop it, basically it just overruns that clutch and it goes right, and the sprag goes right out, and that's what kills it.
Okay, so, but I think that's the only big difference is the way band applies in from each individual gear change, right? The Turbo 400 doesn't apply, I don't think.
Yeah, the basically, if you when I launch like in my car, on a 727, you have second gear is a band apply. It's the front band, so it has a band apply, and then it goes clutches all the way across back.
So, hey, here's something I'll bring up too, because it seems to be foreign to everybody. Well, okay, not everybody. There's some people that have heard me say this before. So, like Levi, you're looking at Turbo 400, or you already have one, or whatever you're doing, I don't know. But Turbo 400s, if you're a Chevrolet guy and you're looking for a Turbo 400, Turbo 400s are generally like, I don't know, $600. Okay. Buick Olds Pontiac Turbo 400, which is the same Turbo 400 minus the bell housing, are about $100. There was 4 times as many Buick Olds Pontiacs made than the Chevrolet. Mm-hmm. But people pay $600 for the Chevrolet to have the Chevrolet bell housing. So, if you want to know the real easy ticket, you buy a BOP one for $100. You cut the bell housing off or mill it off or whatever and put a JW Ultra bell on it that costs $600. But now you have a $700 transmission that has every GM pattern on it with an indestructible SFI bell housing.
Or you can go to TCI, and something that I released last year at SEMA.
Do you guys have a bell like that?
We actually have an adapter plate, so you can get a BOP adapter plate, so you can take your BOP transmission and bolt it to a GM transmission, and it's about 120 thousandths thick, and it uses all the bolts, and then it uses washers between the converter and the flex plate to offset the difference. So it works really bitchin'. Yeah.
I was always lucky being a Buick guy because, and a lot of people don't know this because they're not Buick people. Buick was the only one that I found that has both patterns for any torque converter on the flex plate, right? Yeah. None of the other ones had that. Chevrolet had the small pattern, the Pontiacs had the big pattern, the Buick has both.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Okay, 51 Flat is asking, if I lighten rods on a stock rotating assembly or a stock rotating system, do I need to rebalance the crank?
Yes.
Yeah, it's smart to do that.
100%.
I'm pretty certain that even this guy agrees. I'm not sure. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you got to rebalance it. And try to take as much weight as you can as far as on the bob weight too. That's actually what really helps the most is on the bob weight.
Let's see. Dakota's timeout says, do you know if the Holley double pumpers have the same throttle bore size? I'm pretty sure I've got the 850.
When you add big extra jets to the carburetor, it makes a lot of extra black smoke.
Oh, all right. That's that's a good
That's
insight.
one way, right? It's perfect, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've got an 850, but not 100%.
Yeah, I'm not
Holley's,
sure.
you can look at the part number.
Yeah, they tell you if you go in there, they'll tell you the bore size and the blade size right there.
Yeah, there's a part number stamped in the side of that Holley, and you look it up, and it'll tell you. Like 4150 is not a part number, but generally there's a part number stamped in there, and if you run that part number, I don't think the Holley part numbers have changed all that much in the past 50 years.
No, they're right on the horn, right on the choke horn, like a 4777C is like a 650. I know that one right off the top of my head.
Huh.
So yeah, they're right there, and they're really simple. If you get that, and then you go to if you go to Holley.com, usually you can click on it, and then you go to specs, and it'll tell you everything you need to know about the carb. It'll even give you the factory setups on it.
Oh, so Dakota's saying that the choke tower's been cut off on it.
Oh,
that used to be the go-to racing application was to mill the air horn off or the choke horn off, right? I think they're still stamped up there on the main body.
Yeah,
not on the air horn. It's not on the torque horn.
Yeah, if you go, you can actually go to Holley.com. I'm actually on it right now, and it'll tell you if you just measure the bore size, the throttle blade diameter. They have throttle blades primary and throttle blades secondary, and then you can just kind of go through there, and it'll give you an idea. Like say 1 9/16 primary, 1 9/16 secondary comes out at 600, and then you can kind of go right on through. And I'll click down to an 850 for you and see what they come up with here, if I can find one.
Well, the Buick Smith says he's using your adapter plate for his 700R4 to his Buick.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Thank you. I designed that, so perfect. That was actually one of those things we were looking for. We were actually looking for for transmissions, and we couldn't find a single thing. We found these BOPs, and they were inexpensive, so I made this little adapter plate, and it came up really good. So an 850 actually comes up as 850 would be 1 3/4 and 1 3/4. So there you go. Measure the bore on those, the bore size. If it's an 850, it'll be 1 3/4, 1 3/4. Or if you measure it, just pop it up here, and I'll tell you exactly what it is because I got the link up right now.
All right.
Oh, the wife's laughing at me.
Yeah, she's checking in here, making sure everything's okay. We're not
Right.
doing anything crazy.
I'm actually here.
Oh, did I misspell Zorak's name?
I don't
Oh,
know.
it might be with a C, it might be with a K. He just told me Zorak, so I just essentially put it up there however I wanted, and I don't think it. I don't know. Maybe it.
Panic! Me!
Oh, that's so funny. I love that guy. Oh, Dakota's actually going to go and check it out, so he's going to go and tell me the bore is on it, and I'll tell him what it is. Perfect.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So other than that, since we don't have anything going on, what do you got going on? You got anything?
I've been working on schedules. I'll show you something crazy. Okay, so you know how hard this is for me. Like, well, I told you I run on a shoestring budget, Chinese baby shoestring budget,
Yep.
right? Mm-hmm. All right, so this is a notebook here. It's essentially 2 pages front and back of just one track dates, right? And it's 100-year history of that one, or of the dates that they gave me for the track. And I go through and I average up a percentage of possibility of rain. And if it's over, if it's essentially over 24%, I don't even roll, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to find those dates because if you get upwards of like 33%, that means 1 in 3 possibility of rain. Why would you even drive there if you're going to have $200-300 in overhead, right?
Yeah.
So I do the math first, trying to figure out what's the best days to choose, and then we go from there. Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to rain. It just means that your percentage is in your favor of not raining.
Yeah. There's a funny thing here that if you go 2 down to John Wilburn, I got to explain this. This is actually a really good inside joke. Go 2 down, John Wilburn. Okay.
This one here?
Yes. So a Holly with a 1 in 750, bore and 2 pumps, mechanical secondaries with the 4781 on the side. That's a 4-4. Okay. Who here watches the Search of Oak Island? Do you ever watch that?
No.
Okay.
I used to watch it when it first came out, but like after like the first season when they didn't find anything, and then the second season they kept looking, and you're like, you gotta be kidding me.
Okay, they're like on season 9 now, or whatever it is, right?
Really?
Yeah. So whenever they find something, there's this like voice in the background that, and they'll find like a pin. Like, let's just say they found this pin, right? And the voice, they'll look at each other, and then the voice will be, a pin in the grass? Where could it come from? And then he'll keep going in all these questions, and then he'll describe it. So a 4-fur and a 5-fur, that's like the highest we've seen. So it's like an inside joke. But if you ever watch The Curse of Oak Island, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It is.
I haven't watched it past the first season.
I still watch it for some stupid reason.
Well, I just got lost interest when they didn't find anything, right? You got to find some, damn it. I mean, that's what the whole point of the show is. I'm not going to waste my life not finding nothing. But see, that show and like Gold Rush came out at the same time. Yeah. And I watched Gold Rush. Oh, man. I still watch it like.
Me too. Yeah.
I'm first one in the morning, wake up early, go watch Gold Rush. But the first season they didn't find crap.
Yeah.
The second season they started killing it, and that's where it kept my interest. Mm-hmm. Opposite of the Oak Island, right?
Opposite. But the reason why I'm so fascinated with it is that I remember when I was a kid, and that there was a National Geographic where they talked about this island, right?
Oh, I remember that. No, I remember watching that.
And I was just enthralled with it, and even to this day, I was like, "Man, there's treasure there."
Right. It was all kinds of stuff there. Like it was like supposedly the pirates had done stuff.
Yes.
There was all kinds of little booby traps and mine shafts and all kinds of stuff that were built there.
Yeah, this is before the times of internet and stuff. So when you had a National Geographic that's telling you this epic story that 300 years and the people have died doing this, you're just like, this is awesome,
Right.
And
Well,
so then,
it wasn't commonplace back then.
no, exactly.
Yeah.
And so then when this came out, and all of a sudden I remember being the wife, I was like, the Curse of Oak Island's coming out, yeah! So I was excited about it. So okay, so Dakota's saying that 1 3/4. Okay, 1 3/4.
Okay, there's a few things I wanted to run through here real quick. Okay, so Lout Burns wants to know, why does Zorak sound like Beavis from Beavis and Butthead? I don't know. Maybe it's the same voice actor.
Could
maybe
be.
it's the same guy that's sitting right here in front of you. Okay, so Chris Cox asked, Fab Race Mod repeat. So is it going to rain on us or not? March 11th. For the open season shakedown, is 18.1% chance of rain. It's based on, well, and that's how I do it. Is all with the Farmer's Almanac. I do it old school, right? I don't have anything. I can't call up some scientific brain trust and have them poop out something for me. I got to do it myself. So let's see. We'll come back to him in a second. What was the question that you were one? Okay. So Dakota's saying, yep, 1 3/4. They actually came out about 10,000 shy.
Okay, so 1 3/4, 1 3/4. That's exactly an 850 CFM. That's what Holly's saying here. So there you go.
Okay, so let's catch up here just a second. Let's see. I was going to go back. Okay, Levi's. Any ideas on getting an LS to hold more power? Yeah, I can buy a crank or rods, but like DIY stuff to get that 200 horsepower more, I'll be riding the budget line. Well, what's giving up on it now? Is it the crank?
No, usually the cranks are good. The blocks are good.
The block gives up?
No, block's good. I believe it's the rods that give up on those things, the first thing to give up, and then I think it's the pistons. I believe most people sling a rod on those things than the rod bolts.
Okay, I'll tell you what I would do, because usually the longer the stroke you get, the weaker the crank normally, because the crank, the rod drivers move further away from the main, right? Mm-hmm. So you have less overlap. Mm-hmm. So what you do is, if you want to build something that's big time robust, what you do is you get the shortest stroke you can in that engine combination, okay? And then what you do is you spend your money on a good set of rods and pistons, and then hang on for dear life. Now, you might lose some cubes in the process. Generally, that's always the case because you're moving the rod throw in, right? So you're always losing stroke out of that, and stroke is the quickest way to take cubic inch or make cubic inch. That's why you have stroker combinations and not borer combinations. So when you move it in like that, it makes it considerably stronger. I would have to say it probably gets like upwards of 50 to 100% stronger, about every half an inch that you move it in.
And that's the reason why when Chrysler made the Demon engine or the Hellcat engine, they actually decreased the stroke. They went back down to the 6.1 and the 5.7 stroke on that. So it's a 6.4, but with the shorter stroke on it. And they did that for that exact reason. They just, for the overlap. But it's got the same bore as the 6.4.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's actually 6.2 or 6.1 liter?
6.2. 6.2. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I just, an LS, somebody did a combo not too long ago where they de-stroked an LS, where they took like the shortest stroke crank was like a 4.8 crank or something.
4.8, yeah.
And then put it in a big bore block, which was probably like a 6.2 block. It made some kind of, crazy modified type motor out of it months and months and months ago. But, I mean, that's the ticket. That's how you do them. That's how they used to do the small block Chevrolets. When you were looking at the 302 cubic inch, that 301 actually wasn't a Chevrolet recipe. That was our community built one way back when in the day. And that was called the 301 Chevy.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the 4-inch bore 3-inch stroke.
I am too. It doesn't matter what it is a small block Ford that is the happiest bore and stroke combination for a 302. Well, small block Ford. It revs like mad. It's happier than hell. The only thing that sucks about it is it's got no beans low end. It's got everything top. I imagine the 350 or the 300 Chevrolet is the same way.
Yep.
So the wife is saying Oak Island, a topic on Tech Talk that will be discussed more than once. It's trifecta.
That's a three-fer. It's a trifecta. See, see how it's got the three different things. If you watch Oak Island, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So that would be a three-fer or a trifecta. Yeah, stupid. It's ridiculous. Let's move on to something tech talk.
All right. Let's see.
Just going through reading this.
All right.
170 degrees duration.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Now I'm just replaying the old ones. But let's see. I think the 301 is lower deck, so some machining might be necessary. I want to build a Pontiac 301 with a regular set of Pontiac heads and intake. No, don't even waste your time. Don't even. We've already been down this road. If anything, the best thing to do with the 301 is probably put it off to the side and just forget about it. 326 is a much better combination to even build. Let's see. I remember the 400 block 372 Chevy seemed to be the hot ticket for a circle track back when. They had a lot of them. Was the 372, the 377. That was the big one, the 377. I think that was the 30 over, right?
Yeah, it was the 400 block 350 crank, I believe, is what it was.
Yeah, those are actually a pretty good motor. That's a really big bore. They're 4.1/8 inch bore.
Yeah, 4125. Yeah, and that's like perfect bore too. I mean, that means you can put a big valve in there. It's just awesome.
Yeah. So first responder garage is saying neighbor had a 302 Camaro. Yes, no beans down low. I think that's the only downside is they're all mid-range top end. But I mean, when they come on, God dang, do they come on? Like 2,500 was like the magic number for a 302 Ford.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it is for a 302 Chevrolet. I imagine it's probably about the same. But it's like, holy cow, is this thing still pouring? Are we still pouring gasoline on the coals? I mean, it's really moving.
Yeah, that was the whole inspiration behind my road race, my Desert Dart, is I wanted a big bore, so I got a 6.1, and I kept the stock stroke. I didn't want to stroke it. I wanted to keep a short stroke on it, so that way I could rev the piss out of it. And if I wanted to carry a gear longer than I needed to, it would just carry that out, and that's why I got really good flowing heads too, for that exact reason.
Lout Burn says, yep, I love that Boss 302, but had detonation and blew the porcelain section out of 2 of the spark plugs. So I don't know if those things are known for detonation. I just know that they were serious compression. I want to say they were like 11-1, or I know the 302 Chevrolet was 11-1. I don't know about a Boss 302 Ford, but I can't see it being any less than that, 11-1. But gosh, it's just the happiest little combo. Yeah. So, and Clint Street Machine saying that that's where all the leftover 400 cranks were. They started making 383s out of them. Yeah, the one I always wanted to do, like, I'm a big fan of the small cubic inch stroker, okay? Because a small cubic inch stroker can be used in a towing application to get decent mileage, but yet tow really well. And I've always been fascinated with 307 Chevrolet with a 383 crank in it. That's been one of the things I've always wanted to do, right? 305 is too anemic because the bore is too small. You can't get a good valve in it, right? So you can't get any, and maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe a Vortec head 305 head on a stroker 305 would be good too, because I mean you can make a 334, 339, but I always wanted to do that 307 because it come out to 340 cubic inches, and I think you could use a good regular Vortec head on that with a 194 valve, and that thing would probably make 350 horse, 400 foot-pounds of torque all day long.
Yeah. Hey, go to the one right below it. Colleen, she actually sent me a text. Yeah. So she was asking if this would be Damien's old 360 318 engine. It's basically 60 over, and she sent me a cam card. So it's a 204 214 duration at 50 on a 112 LSA. Yeah, installed on a 108. It's a 204 214 duration. That's pretty close to stock. Now it's a little tighter LSA, so you're going to get a little bit more torque out of it. But it's going to run pretty stock. So as far as a driver, it's going to be a great driver if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for something performance, this would be not the cam. I would go at least 10 degrees more intake and exhaust minimum to get some sort of performance out of it. So 214, 224, and I would probably put that on a 110 LSA, and that would actually help it out. But for this will be a driver camshaft, and the lift is 422, 444. So that's basically that literally is probably your RV cam is what I would consider that compared to like a stock cam. That would be your basically stage 1/2, not even one. It'd be a half a stage.
Man, so Mrs. P, it could be worse. They could be talking about Space Ghost, coast to coast.
What? Oh, come on. Yeah, that's the perfect one. There you go.
Yeah. 302 Chevy, 290 horsepower. LOL, not. Let's see. The OC2 kid's really, he's laughing about this. More like upper 300s. I think it was probably closer to 400 horse, to tell you the truth. I think that engine was 400 horse because that's where kind of on par. When you build it's a little bit of a hot rod 302 Ford, they come out to about 400 horse.
Yeah.
And
with RPM though, you got to have the
right.
RPM.
And I think that's probably what you were looking at when you were looking at a DZ302 is probably somewhere around 400 horse. They were 11-to-1 compression. They did have double hump heads on them. They were virtually the best combo you could get at the time. It had the Duntov 3030 cam in them and a high-rise dual plane intake manifold. It probably was close to 400 horse, I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay, so 38 POS Racing, Professor P, the old school Chevy 301. What was that combination?
What's he talking about?
He's wanting to know what the combo is for a 301 Chevy. How do you make one? It's the same way as the Chevrolet, the Ford, or that Chevrolet made their 302 DZ302.
Yeah.
It's a 4-inch bore, 327 small journal crank. Or, a small journal. It's actually a 4-inch bore, 327, with a small journal 283 crank in it.
Yeah.
That's the
hot ticket.
Yeah, that is the hot ticket. And, there's two things really going for you there that nobody looks at. One, bearing surface area. There's less bearing surface area on the small journal stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's got a 2-inch rod journal. The mains on a Chevrolet small block is 2.5 inch. So if you're looking,
friend, yeah,
right, that's what makes RPM the hot ticket, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you were to take that 302 Chevrolet, the only way you could possibly improve on it from the factory, because they used a 5.7 rod, which made a short rod, and with a really short stroke combination, means they had a really tall piston compression height, and that's kind of the opposite of RPM. What they should have done is stuck a 6-inch long rod in it, and turn it way up.
Yeah, raise that compression height so make it smaller, so the pin's higher up there. So and that would cut down on the bob weight, but you're kind of robbing Paul to pay Peter with the longer rod. But then it would RPM. No, Space Ghost. Yeah, she grew up in that area too.
See, it could have been worse.
Yeah, right?
We could have. Well, originally we were chasing Ookla the Mock. If you know who Ookla the Mock is, and he just didn't turn out to be a good guest. I mean, we had him on here for a couple of seconds, and it was like, this is just not going to work.
Yeah,
he was. Oh, see, that's why. This is all he says.
Oh man, we're going back in time to my.
Yeah, I'm going through childhood hell here.
Right. Running home just to watch cartoons like this,
Let's see. Kurt Tank asks a good question. What are crankshafts soaked in to make stronger?
We would just nitrite. Yeah, I've never soaked them anything. We would nitrite them, and that definitely makes them stronger.
There's actually a couple of ways to go about it. You can vibrate them. There's a thought process that if you vibrate the molecules, like on a vibration table, it puts all the molecules in alignment.
Oh yeah, well, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Nitriting is essentially, isn't that freezing it?
nitriting is just a process of basically it's hardening the surface. So that's basically what it's doing.
Okay.
It goes just underneath it. But when I was doing a lot of cranks at Crowder, and in fact, we just would nitrite them at that point. To make them stronger.
If you want to make a crank stronger, just like, let's say you took a cast crank and you wanted to make it stronger, because a steel crank is already strong just by itself.
Yeah.
Right? But I mean, either way, it'll work either way. You can actually take that crank and heat it to the point where it's turned orange and then dunk it in oil, right? You'll want to do this before you turn the crank.
Yeah.
Right? Not after.
Yeah.
But
the one thing I always try to tell people too is that when it comes to crankshafts, a forged crank, pound for pound. Now, there's a key word there. Pound for pound, a forged crank is going to be stronger than a billet crank because it goes with grain flow. The grain on a forged crank flows through it because it's been beat into shape. Where you start with an ingot and then you're cutting it, so the grain flow goes through. Basically, it's being cut.
Yeah, it's straight through.
Yeah, so you can heat treat it and do all that different things to it to get the grain flow correct. But pound for pound, a forged crank is always going to be stronger. But you have more material to work with a billet, so that way you can actually make a billet stronger than a forged, but it's going to be slightly heavier because you're going to have to keep the material there.
So, Dakota's wanting to know, can you elaborate on nitriting? I've never heard of that before.
I could. It's a long process. It's a long chemical process.
I thought it wasn't. I thought it was the freezing of it, right? Is it nitriting the freezing of it, where they put liquid nitrogen on it and freeze it down to? What's the one where they cryogenically treating it?
That's cryogenics. That's called cryoheat. Now, I've done a lot of cryoheating on my gears. In fact, all the gears on my cars have all been frozen and basically they're frozen, then they're brought up to temperature and they're held at a temperature for a long time, and that basically just brings all the molecules into alignment, and it makes the surface really hard. Dakota, if we'll go to Slant Daily Garage and send me an email and we'll talk about that. That's we'll lose a lot of people. It's a long, boring thing. I'll lose people if I explain that.
LC2 Kid's asking, Shane, you ever dealt with REM finishing?
No, I have not.
No.
I didn't. I know exactly what it is. That's also another very long. Basically, it's like a polishing process where it gets down really fine. It's like a mirror process, mirror finish on it, and there's it's not really a coating. It's kind of like a coating, but basically it's a really fine finish.
Let's see. Greg McDonald saying magnetizing would be the same as vibrating a crank, right? Same principle, lining up atoms. It's supposed to be. I don't know if magnetizing does that. I've never heard of that one, but that doesn't mean anything. That some of these are. I feel some of them might be snake oil versus real science, but I wouldn't dispel them at all. There's a reason why a lot of these things came about. If you look at the old school hot rodders, for some reason they had a better grasp on metallurgy than we do today.
Yeah. And that's why I didn't want to bore people with it. As far as, in the simplest form, nitriting is basically diffuses nitrogen onto a surface of metal, and it basically case hardens it. It's really a boring subject, So
Kevin here says, I must be old. Who is Zanrak? Well, Wani's Zorak. And he originally was from the original 1967 cartoon of Space Ghost. Mm-hmm. Okay, when they brought him back in like the mid to late 90s on the Adult Swim Cartoon Network stuff, he was on Space Ghost Coast to Coast. And so we got Sam Crack. Colleen said he was on Space Ghost. He was the bad guy on Space Ghost, right? We found out he was a car guy, right? Like, and so I asked him about going on here.
Me.
Yeah, see, he's a mechanic.
Yeah,
and he has smart ass answers.
Hey, you know what? John Wilburn, go two down. John Wilburn was saying, he said that he'll host Nitriding Live if you want. That sounds like a great, because that way it's a very long, drawn out type of deal. That actually sounds good, John. We'll do that.
Oh, Doug Narden's out of here. See you later, Dougster.
Yeah, take it easy, man.
Oh, okay. So Greg Jitto's he's gonna jump through the rabbit hole here. Superheat nitrogen to plasma and hit the crank with it. Makes the first 15 thousandths of the metal surface super hard while not messing with the internal metal.
It's true. Basically, and that's what it kind of gives it, that little black finish to it. So you actually see it. So
it's similar to like plasma moly, but they're using nitrogen.
Yes, nitrogen, exactly. And they're basically it's diffusing it. So it's a whole different process. And all
GM called nitriding tough riding, or if you're a Buick fan or Pontiac fan, even they had a crank that came in the Buick stuff and the Pontiac stuff that was let's see, Armasteel. And Armasteel was supposed to be this same kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Zoltar, Zanrak, it's all good. It's the same. We're just having fun with this guy. Okay. 38 POS Racing. If you magnetize the crank, would the rod stay on better?
No.
I think it would surpass the magnetizing with like 100 RPM.
Yeah.
The inertia would outweigh it by far.
Yeah, just start up. Just even turning it over with the crank would go away.
Danny Boyd says, I remember tough riding. Let's see. I wonder if the Knight Rider TA had any nitrided parts. I think the dash was nitrided.
Yeah. One thing that you guys see a lot of it that's nitrided is your camshaft. If you get a flat tappet cam, 90% of the time it's gonna be nitrided.
This is what I was hinting at earlier when I said if you heat that crankshaft up to it's glowing red and then dip it in a bucket of oil. All right, that is essentially just metal hardening.
Yes.
You're just using carbon to harden the metal, and what happens is you get super hot, and the oil, it wicks the carbon. The oil is flash burned into carbon, and it wicks the carbon into the pores of the steel, making it harder, or iron in this case. But it can be done to anything. It's just heat treating. So Burt Monroe used to do that with his pistons.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, bung them in water.
There's actually an answer to this one, two down from that. Yeah.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. He goes, I've seen a lot of videos of cars going into the other lane. He goes, yes, Clayton, have a better nut behind the steering wheel. Because he was asking, why is there cars going into the other lane quite a bit? The reason why you're seeing that is because a lot of these guys are running all that no prep stuff, and they're just trying to put down too big of numbers. And it happens once they get out there, because they're only running at, like, say, 50% power, and then by the time they ramp the power in, like half a second out, the track just can't take it. I mean, some of these things are making 3,000 or 4,000 horsepower. So
what I kind of equate this to is the if you remember, like maybe the late 70s, early 80s WWF wrestling. Mm-hmm. And it was like everybody and their brother wanted to be a wrestler at one point. Yeah. And they were all coming out there to have names like, I don't know, I'll pick one, Brooklyn Brawler, or it was guys that were like literally one-hit wonders or two-hit wonders. And they were coming out to this professional arena, and they were throwing down with the best thing they had, and it just never was good, right? Because they don't have this experience, the skills, the know-how, all that. That's exactly what's going on with your no prep street racer kind of crap that's going on today. I'm not saying they aren't great. They're great in their own arena, right? Mm-hmm. The downside of those guys is they go out there with 2,000 horsepower, going down the track as a daily car, as a Honda. They never were freaking doing donuts in a V8 car, rear-wheel drive on an icy highway at 70 miles an hour. And they're just of this generation that thinks they can just jump behind the wheel and everything's good because they've done it before. It's not the same, right?
I have so much seat time street racing, and I know you do too, that a lot of my reactions are they're just natural because that's just what I'm used to.
Well,
you know?
okay, I'll tell you where the big difference is at. Where the big difference lies in our age group, our arena. You know that stupid thing everybody calls out Gapplebees or giving the Gap or whatever, bus links on them. Nobody in our day put bus links on anybody so they could jack the next sucker by a freaking fender and take all their money, right? Mm-hmm. That was real street racing. The stuff that's today is just dumb. I don't find it fun. I don't find it enjoyable. I definitely don't find the people appealing because it's literally all about the attitude and the shit talking. And look, nobody back then used to shit talk anybody. You'd rope-a-dope everybody, and that's what everybody was trying to do. What was cool about it is, oh, man, I got beat up street racing. Don't fucking pull that crap because you were out there doing the same thing.
Yeah,
right. So
exactly. Yeah, I used to call it backing into people. So I would get out, barely beat them, and then like pretend like I missed a shift, and they would come up, and I would just barely beat them. So I'm just slowly backing into them, and then like, man, let's do that again. I almost had you. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, and then it just barely beat them again. Sometimes I would get 3 races out of the same dude that way, and then by that point you're up to $200 in racing. So
what was funny is SoCal, they used to have the Brotherhood of Street Racers. Mm-hmm. That's really what it was before all this craziness came about. I mean, if Big Willie was alive today, he'd be smacking these guys upside the head, telling them what was what. Because they're doing the opposite of what he used to do.
Yeah.
Right? It's just horrible. I think we're actually going backwards as a society.
Hey, go to Max Wedge Dick Dastardly. He actually has a question here that is relevant. It's actually a really good question.
Okay.
Does shop peening rods do anything? Always wondered. 100% correct. Yes, it does. It basically gets rid of all the stress risers is what you're doing. You're basically just relaxing it. That's exactly what shop peening does. Always shop peen your rods, especially factory ones if you can do it. And if you do any work to them, I always cut them down and reprofile them. And
shape them. Yeah, shaping them would take a lot of the stress out too. You can make a really strong rod at home just by basic stuff like shop painting and then reshaping the rod.
A Chrysler factory rod is really heavy, and it's funny. It's that all the little tricks that I used to do back in the day is being showed by what's that guy's name? David Vizard guy. Right. He's showing what he's doing to some of these rods. Now he's going a little farther than what I did, but I would literally take down the beam because most of the rods for Chryslers were all forged, and I would take and cut down the beam. I'd cut down the top. I'd cut some of the pad off the bottom, and then I would go and have them shop peened, and that would actually take a lot of weight away and make them super strong. And I would change the rod bolts in them, and they were good to 600-700 horsepower factory rods. I did that a lot.
Okay, so here's 2 things. Danny Boyd says Big Willie died. Oh yeah, he died back in 2005 maybe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody did get his car and restored it. I believe his wife has already died. Let's see. Dakota's timeout. I've heard you can shop peen rods with a Harbor Freight needle scaler. Is that right? Well, in the Navy, we actually use those things. They're called a needle gun, is what we called them. But I don't see why it wouldn't work. But I'm telling you, all these cheap-ass ways of doing stuff is going to come back and bite people in the ass.
Yeah.
Shop peening the rod is so simple. You literally take it to the machine shop. They put it in a box. Mm-hmm. It shoots fine shot at it at like 100 miles an hour.
Yep.
And you pay $50 for it. It probably costs, I don't know, maybe 1.5 times what that needle gun scaler does at Harbor Freight.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do anything with it except for drop it off. And the machine shop will be happy that you dropped it off because they literally just put it in a box and let the thing get shot all up. It cost them no time. They can do other stuff while it's happening. And they charge you $50 for it or whatever.
Yep. It's totally worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. But man, we're drawing to a close already.
Is it really?
Yeah, we got about 6 minutes left, I guess. That went by really fast.
You did.
Yeah, what do you got to say, Zorak? Oh, all right. Yeah, I got it. All right.
It's probably the worst guest we had, man. He
didn't really say much.
Right?
Yeah,
2 more degrees should be good. Send it.
Yeah, he didn't say much. But I never did ask him a cam question. Well, we didn't really get into cam questions with him, did we?
No, I don't think so. We only had the one cam question from
Problem
Colleen.
here. You need 370 degrees duration.
Oh, maybe we did have that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, we did have that one. Yeah, when we did the cam, the hardcore tech. Yeah.
Well, it was great hearing from you, Zorak. Thanks for stopping by Mr. Rodder's neighborhood and Slant Daily Garage here on the Wednesday Night Tech Talk.
Yeah.
But it was good having a guest that really
It's the
we can
mechanic.
control.
Me.
All right, yeah, we're done with you, dude.
It's awesome. That's so awesome.
Yeah, but I guess the things I got to throw out there, get yourself some AHRA merch over on the eBay page. We ran out of AHRA Sportsman Drag Racing posters. We still have some of the I Want You posters, but we ran out of the AHRA Sportsman Drag Racing posters at the Greensboro Drag Racing and Hot Rod Expo, the Shriners deal. John Wilburn and I went over there last Friday and gave it a to-do and had a good time. And we got rid of the posters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the only thing I got going on is that I sold my RV. I think I told you that a little while back. And then I sold my enclosed trailer. I sold that 24-foot enclosed trailer I had.
really?
And I bought a new one.
Oh. Well, I was thinking, I'm surprised you actually got rid of that, having the Cummins truck, because there's literally like no difference towing an open trailer or an enclosed trailer.
With that thing, yeah. But I bought them, and that's exactly the point, is that the 24-foot that I had was basically just, it was as light as possible so that way I could tow it with the RV or my truck in Southern California. This one here is a 28-foot, and it's completely done inside, cabinets, the whole thing. Basically, it's a turnkey unit. Yes.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yes.
It's got air conditioner in it?
Oh, yes.
That's what you need. That's all you need.
I basically, and we have an oil heater in it. We just bought a refrigerator so we can put it in there. So when I go to the No Name Nationals, I'm going to be staying at the track the whole time. I'm going to be staying in that thing.
Going
it's
in style.
Yeah, and it's got a 50 amp hookup in it, so I have my generator. So I'll have everything. I'll have a flat screen in there and everything, so I'll be set up. Oh, yeah.
Man, it'll be the pad. It'll be the swingers pad.
I'm going to have 3 kids, so yeah, not that time. Maybe some other time.
All right. Well, we'll just have to share some food around, just like the community barbecue that we had last year. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But other than that, I think that's about it. I'd like to thank Zorak for coming on and doing nothing, calling us meat bags and the whole 9 yards. And he does. You're right. He does sound like Beavis.
Yeah.
But yeah, and don't forget, John Wilburn's going to be live on Friday. Let's see, and then of course, Northeast Dragway March 11th is the open season shakedown, and it's in Hertford, North Carolina. If you know where that's at, it's right outside Elizabeth City. And remember, it has an 18.1% possibility of rain, which is a good
14
number.
hours. I would like to go, but it's 14 hours for me. That's a long drive.
Well, you go on May the 20th when it has a 33.7% chance of rain. That's terrible.
Yeah. Hey, John, at the end of these Wednesday nights, I know that you always do it on yours, but what's the orange number right now? What's the orange stamp number? We'll just give a number at the end of our podcast here.
What's that?
He always has an orange number. He always has the orange poster in the back with the number on the back.
Oh, yeah. You want to know what the number is today?
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
He knows exact down to the hour, I'm sure of it.
John, what's the number? Come on. Give us the number. He's probably scrambling right now.
So, all right. Well, I got to get out of here before I leave the pool. But
all right, man.
All right. So we're gonna cut this off, and y'all, I'll see you next Wednesday.
Yep. And if there's something we didn't get to, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. Once again, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com. I've already got about 4 different emails that came up already, so I will get to those questions.
All right. Thanks for stopping by.
All right. You guys take it easy. Have a